Welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in once again and giving us your time and attention. We really do appreciate it. And you might notice that we've got Jam back.
Nice to be here.
How's your trip, Jam? I know you were away for a few weeks and I had to do this all by myself. How was your trip?
I mean, trip was great and you done very well. You had 2 episodes with your own granddad.
Yeah.
And also Mike G. Different perspectives, I mean, the whole idea of the quest for success is not just looking at one type of people to understand what's the success mean to them and what they think create their success. It's about having that diverse backgrounds and people from different achievements. So it's a big contrast from granddad and someone we both know very well, and it's awesome guy. So just to understand his bit of a background and what success mean to him, which is very good. And again, Mike G is the future, right? As you know. I quite believe you guys, and it's also good to hear what his thoughts. But something that I learned from those 2 discussions that you had, it's success mean to both these guys is like a fulfillment.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
Yeah. So it's just achieving something that you want to achieve, like, and not necessarily you become a billionaire or a millionaire or, or achieving something very, very large, like significant size thing. But talking about achievements, talking about fulfillment, my holiday was very successful.
Oh, that's good. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you know, I love to go to Sri Lanka. That's where I was born, and I still have so many friends there, and the real friends. Like I really enjoy hanging out with those guys. And again, my parents are there. So good to spend some time with them, and especially that was during the Sinhalese Tamil New Year time. So if you don't know what's Sinhalese Tamil New Year, so we follow stars, like the culture, the Sri Lankan culture. So according to our culture, so it's more Eastern thing.
Yeah.
It's the universe moving, and when you meet these 2 stars, you call it New Year, right?
Yeah.
So that's when. So the April 13, 14 is Sinhalese New Year. So after 34 years, over 34 years, I got to celebrate that with my mom and dad and family. So it was really good to get back and do that with Michelle. So
just on that, like what's the celebration for Sinhalese New Year?
Yeah, it's so these guys believe in a lot of auspicious times and things like that. So it's pretty much looking at some auspicious time and you doing activities, like, so for example, there's auspicious time for you to start cooking, right? Like, so prepare a meal, very first meal for the year. And then there's a time that you have to go to temple or church or, doing, religious activities. And there's a time you to start working, for the new year, like, so it's a kind of a very traditional thing going for many, many years. So, it's sometimes it's nice to be part of it, and enjoy, especially with your mom and dad. They were very glad to have us there.
And your sister was there as well, right?
No, she didn't make it to that time, but she was there for our holiday. So talking about fulfillment, there's something else that I want to share while I was in Sri Lanka. So Michelle and I, when we got married, like we married almost 28 years now. we were thinking of we want to go where we want to go for a honeymoon, right? This was 1996, and 95 we got married here in Australia, and other way around, 96 we got married here in Australia, and 97 January we had a wedding in Sri Lanka. So we wanted to have a honeymoon. We both like to go to Maldives, and but that time, we were just starting our lives together, and we couldn't afford to go to Maldives, right? So we said, okay, let's postpone this trip to another time.
Yeah.
And then one of my good friend, Uncle Manjula, he was working in Maldives, and this is when we had Naomi. Naomi was only one year old when we went to my sister's wedding in Sri Lanka. We thought, well, going to Maldives because my friend in Maldives, and he was going to organize all this accommodation, etc., for us. But then, unfortunately, Naomi got sick that time, so we couldn't go that time either.
Classic Naomi ruining trips.
Yeah, she always spoiled the and then third time we were planning, and then I got caught up with many other projects and work. So we have to postpone that trip. So I know Michelle she's bringing me all these brochures to me, and showing me, hey, there's a nice deal, there's a beautiful resort and all that. So I really wanted to kind of organize this trip for her, but the thing is, I wanted to do that as a surprise for her. So what I did, we organized this trip, and then I pretend that even a few months back, we were planning to go to Sri Lanka, and she was saying, can we go to Maldives? And she was showing me this brochure, and I was looking at and was saying to her, wow, well, we're going to Sri Lanka. Going to Sri Lanka or Maldives is the same thing, and only thing you pay more. Forget it, and then just push her back. I mean, she was so kind, and she didn't even challenge me, right? Like many times. So I'm not talking about once, many times. She said, oh, okay, all right. And so I organized this trip with my sister and also my close friends, Sajid and Debbie, without letting her know, right? So, but the thing is, while we were in Sri Lanka 2 weeks, we had family get-togethers. As you know, we had a 1-year death anniversary of my uncle. So that's the main reason that we went to Colombo. And while we there, Michelle never asked, okay, what are we gonna? She knew that we are leaving Colombo on 29th of April and arriving to Sydney on 4th of May.
Yeah.
But she never even asked, what are we going to do in the middle, right? So it was so easy for me to set this surprise. So anyway, and then at close to 29, 28, and I was we already booked, my sister and my brother-in-law, as well as my friends. We all wanted to go to Maldives. First time we were all going to Maldives, and we already booked. We already got everything ready. But Michelle is the only one didn't know. Even whole my family
even her family, all Auntie Kath, everyone, Nana and Granddad, everyone knew.
Yeah,
except Mom.
Yeah, it was funny because, and then we would start giving her surprises small by small, So when the day before we are leaving on 28th, we said to her, my sister and Padmika and Harshan is coming, joining us. And she, oh, wow, that was very nice, So, and then next day we said, Sajid's coming, right? Oh, wow, she's got excited. And then they all came to pick us up to the airport. And then she was surprised. Oh, you all coming? I said, yeah. Where are we going? She thought we are going to Malaysia, right? That's the kind of a dummy location that we said to her. So we were saying that we're going to Malaysia, and even in the airport, there's a like big sign of like
Yeah.
Malay, right? We were boarding to Malay flight,
Yeah.
and even the announcements, right?
Yeah. Just to clarify, Malé is the place in
Maldives, yeah,
Maldives
it's
that
the
you're going to
capital of
go.
Maldives,
And so that was the good little trade off there. You could have Malé and kind of play it off as
Malaysia.
Malaysia.
But I mean, the funny thing, because we also distract her, like my sister, Debbie, like all kind of a distractor, and we were. Uh, every time there was an announcement going, and we're trying to, having a different conversation with her. So anyway, in the aeroplane, so we were going, and then the captain announced, we are just about to land to Malé, and at that time I was just, and luckily Michelle was sleeping. She was. I mean, it's only 1 hour flight from Colombo to
Yeah.
Malé, right? And so I encouraged her to sleep, and then she was expecting it's a nearly 3 hour flight to Malaysia, right? And then just about to land, and I had to wake her up, get the seat belts and everything ready, and then she said, "Oh wow, 2 hours gone so fast, right?" And anyway, then she looked at the window and she saw some islands, and she was keep watching, and then so, oh, beautiful islands, I didn't realize there's so many islands here. And she was saying, and then I was saying, yeah, you don't believe, yeah, Malaysia's got a lot of islands, and anyway, and then she realized this is exactly what you see in those brochures.
Yeah.
And then she looked at me. I don't know. You can actually share that video.
Yeah, we'll add the video. She's probably gonna hate us for it, but we'll
Yeah.
add a little clip of the video on our
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah, but I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing. Surprise for her, and she was in tears. She was kind of, and we had an awesome time. So we spent 4 nights in Maldives, and it was a great place. It was island, and it's beautiful time. We did snorkeling. We spent a lot of time just relaxing. Pretty much, we were staying in a water bungalow, so we were just going under the that water bungalow and swimming underneath, and the fish so beautiful, multicolor fish, and sea rays, turtles, and even sharks. We actually saw sharks when we were doing snorkeling.
You got to go on a little dolphin cruise as well. Saw some dolphins.
Yeah, so this resort that we stayed in, Cinnamon Resort. So they very amazing staff, amazing team, and they actually gave us a free tour, dolphin tour. It was amazing, and we had an awesome time. And so it's in a way it's a very successful trip.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so achieving what we wanted to do, and again creating that surprise for Michelle, it was amazing. And one other thing, it was very successful. As you know, I mean, I always talking about inspiration, right? So we always had many people inspired us in our life, and so I mean, I have so many people inspired me. Every day that I listen to some audios, watch videos, and get inspired by amazing mentors and people, and I didn't have to go too far to get that inspiration when I had like huge challenges. Early days when I was in Australia and I was struggling. I had very tough 2 years, early 90s. Those days, who inspired me was my dad, your grandfather. And because I knew that he had an amazing story, right? And I knew he was an orphan, and he didn't have anybody to kind of take care of him, and he came to Colombo and built himself into a in his own rights very successful man. And but I wanted to understand his story a bit more. So one of the things that I've done in this tour, I spent some time talked to him, actually recorded a audio or a video with him, and asked some questions. And unfortunately, it's in Sinhalese because my dad can't speak English. So I recorded that. Mainly, I think it will be very useful one day for you and your kids, or even further, at least to see him and, to understand his story. So that's something that, it was amazing time. That was, I mean, my dad is 90 years old this year. He's turning 90. Um, and he's pretty healthy. Both my mom and dad. My mom's turning 86 in June, and my dad's turning 90 in November. Um, and we're all gonna go in
Yeah.
November to celebrate his birthday. And so understanding his story, it's actually I became like a changed man, like towards to him, because I saw him before. He was a man very. I mean, he achieved success. I mean, he's doing so many things to so many people. Right? If you come to my house, I mean, you've been to my house. You've seen like my mom and dad's place in Colombo. There are always at least 20, 30 people in the house. There's a lot of visitors. And every day you're talking about making 50, 60 cup of teas,
Yeah.
or meals for people. There's so many visitors coming to their place, right? And the locals, some people coming from country, and pretty much, my mom and dad like spend so much energy hosting these people, right? I mean, I enjoy hosting, right? As you know, we got a lot of visitors coming to our place, but nothing like that, right? But I just want to I mean, this whole discussion actually gave me really insight to why he's doing it, and a lot of his background, So I can share some, if you like, I mean, it's a inspirational story. Anyone want to listen to this story, I think there's a lot of takeaways. Um, so, my dad, Nimal. So, Nimal was born in 1934, and his father was a carpenter. And he was apparently a very good man, very nice man. People really like him in the area. And his father, I believe, also a carpenter, well-known guy in the area, but they're very poor people. They're not very wealthy, but very respectable family
Yeah.
in that area. Um, and stop me if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer. I want to tell this story.
Yeah.
Um, so, and unfortunately, when my dad was only 3 years old, uh, his mom passed away, giving birth to his sister. So both mom and sister died. So sister lived about 50 days and then passed away. And so he didn't have so anyone to kind of take care of him. And luckily, Nimal's dad had two other elder sisters.
Yeah.
And one of those sisters pretty much um, taken care of him over the years. And then when he was 8, his dad actually remarried. Again, what according to his story, um, he was forced to kind of, not forced to, like, he didn't want to kind of remarry, but then um, and then a lot of aunties and in people, that friends said, well, you're still young, you should remarry. And got when he was 8, he got married, remarried. And my dad, Nimal, he actually didn't go to school till he's 10.
Wow.
So he was living with his auntie, my Nimal's dad's sister. So that auntie's son was going to school, but he didn't go to school. According to his memory, his auntie was saying, I don't want to send you to school because then the school teachers and principal will punish you, smack you. I don't want the kid without the mother to,
She felt like guilty. She didn't
yeah,
want.
so sort of thing, and then she took care of, again, this is how he felt it, I mean, this is very long time ago. And so his cousin, this auntie's son actually went to school. So Nimal actually learned from him. Like he didn't go to school, he was just learning things from him. But this is the kid. So I asked him, so what have you done till 10, right? Um, Nothing. Like he's the kid that when you go to Sri Lanka, or if you haven't been to Sri Lanka, any of you go into a third world country, you probably see there's a kid running around with probably a no shirt or nothing, and talking to people or asking some support. He's one of them, right? My dad. So he was just mucking around, like going from house to house, get fed from aunties, friends, So he didn't have any, even he was staying with auntie and living with his cousins. Um, and he didn't have no one to kind of a full attention, like, And then his father got married and had three daughters and three brothers, sorry, three sons in the second marriage. And most of the girls uh, passed away in younger age as well. And three brothers, I actually know them. I met them, um, and two of them are still alive. And so going back to Nimal, so Nimal, they were living actually next door to a school. Even he hasn't been to a school.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So then the school principal realized this kid always hanging out with his cousin, but he's not actually in any class. And then he shouldn't be doing that. He should come and go to school. So in year 10, somehow he managed to get him to school, right? When he was 10. So and then but all his same age guys were in year 4 or 5, right? So he was like catching up. So this principal kind of helped him to escalate, like
So what did he start just from the bottom?
yeah,
I guess?
bottom
Yeah,
from but then so he was just starting school, and then few years time, and then when he was so he studied about 4 years in the local school, and but then he's like a pretty much running around everywhere, like especially your dad had 6 other kids to take care, and you probably get neglected. So again, my dad, he can't remember anything about his mom, or not even face look, what she looked like. He can't remember at all. um and so he when so pretty much then what happened, suddenly when he was around 14 years old, uh he didn't know, until then he didn't know anything about his mother's side. So he only knew his father's side. He didn't know, his dad never told him about his aunties, uncles, or nothing from his mom's side, right? And suddenly, when he was 14-year old, uh, this monk came to the village, and he said, "I'm your uncle, it's your mom's younger brother." And that was the first time actually he remembered meeting someone from mom's side. So he was a Buddhist monk, and he said, well, I heard about, like, I mean, he was kind of doing his own research and finding out detail about his like a dead sister, and then realized she had like a kid. So he wants to come and see this kid. And then when he came, to this village, my dad's village, realized, these kids getting neglected, not really getting even a meal properly. So he decided, why don't you come? Because this monk actually came from Colombo, like, which is the city
Yeah.
of Sri Lanka, and capital city. So he said, I'm going to take this kid to my place in Colombo. And at that time, Nimal's dad didn't really like it. But then Nimal, he was so keen to go. He thought, well, it's like going overseas
Yeah.
those
It's
days.
an adventure.
Yeah, it's adventure, and he didn't see any future in the village, right? So, um, but then he didn't have any decent cloth to wear, right? So he was wearing rags pretty much, I believe. So it took 2 days for them to find some, because that time in country Sri Lanka, he was wearing sarong, right? uh, Sarong, and so they couldn't find him a clean sarong and a shirt for 2 days. So once they found that, and then so this uncle, the monk, um, took him. First, he took him to mom's village. So it's about, I don't know how far from these two village, but this is something that I want to do, Dylan. When we go in November, actually wanted to visit those places. I've been in those places, but that was a while back, and you guys been there as well when you're young, but it makes sense for us to now knowing this story better.
Yeah. It'd be cool to go and like retrace his steps almost.
Absolutely.
Start in his village and
Yeah.
follow the journey.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanna So then this Buddhist monk, my dad's uncle, took him to his birth village, like uh, again in the same area, but probably it's a little bit away from it's down south of Sri Lanka. And um, and then first time my dad Nimal met uh, aunties, even I can't remember meeting grandmother or anyone, but first time he met aunties and uncles. So my dad's Nimal's mom's side, apparently they have two elder sisters, and then the younger sister. So um, my Nimal's mom is the third, and then there's a younger sister, and as well as a younger brother. So younger brother is the monk,
Yeah.
only son in that family. So first time they met, and then after that, he took him back to Colombo. So, uh, so this Nimal's uncle, he was actually teaching in a Buddhist university, and so my dad was staying with him in a rented room, sharing with him, and then um, he's actually sent him to school as well. So one thing, Nimal's story, what I learned, he had a huge interest in learning, right? And otherwise, this could, that's what, when we were talking, he said he had the option been doing nothing, or like someone kind of wasted his whole life, but he always had that enthusiasm for learning, studying. So that enthusiasm, probably this monk also seen, and so he put him to school in Colombo. It's funny, like he was like 15 years old, and he was going to year 5 or year
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So year 5 in Colombo school, right? Year 5. And and then he was there for a year, and then got a so his dad also come and time to time come and visited him, his Colombo, and gave some money to go to school as well, whatever money he had. um, and then when he was 16, he got the news his dad also passed away. Right? Apparently, he had a heart attack. That's what my dad's thinking. So he had a heart attack and he passed away. Nimal was only 16 years old, and then he didn't have any money coming from
Yeah.
village. He couldn't afford, and two, like he wanted to go back to his village. So he went back to his dad's village, and after Nimal's dad passed away, and then that luckily that school principal got him to come back to the local country school, right? So this is when he was 16. um, and then what happened, this monk, uncle, Nimal's uncle, came back to the village again, and said to him, well, let's go. You're kind of uh, you're wasting your time. You're not really achieving anything. So he's probably around 17 that time.
Yeah.
And he took him to his temple, his village temple, which I really like to go and see, and took him there and got him to become a monk. So Nimal was a monk,
Wow.
and when he was like 17. So I think uh, knowing the background of Sri Lanka, and you see when you go to a Buddhist religious activity, there are a lot of young monks,
Yeah.
right? Um, Mostly these people are coming from very poor background, poor family. I haven't seen any rich kid
Yeah.
become a monk, right? So they're coming from country, poor background. One main reason is they can have that opportunity to get fed, get like the they can get study, then they can go to whatever. So probably that was one of the reasons. So my uncle, my dad's uncle, got him to become a monk, like I mean, I'm not sure it's a forcefully or not. To me sounds like he didn't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
So Nimal didn't have a choice. So he got him, asked him to stay there. And also, he had the chance to go into school, but that's a different type of school. It's not like the general, it's more like a Buddhist learning in a different curriculum altogether. So he was a monk. This is something first time I actually heard that. I didn't know. I knew he was so close to the religion, but
Yeah.
I
Didn't
didn't
know
know.
why.
So this is another eye opener for me because he's so too. I mean, in a way, for my liking, he's too close to monks, right? And he's sometimes I get annoyed, and like so I make so many bad comments. Now realizing, man, this guy was a monk for 2 years. I feel bad.
Yeah, because maybe it's like now that he's out of that kind of life, whenever he sees them, he can empathize and sympathize with what they're going through and maybe what they've had to give up to be there. Because I know he's especially like that around young monks
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. Yeah,
So he probably sees himself in those people, and
yeah.
he understands kind of maybe the suffering or the struggle that they're going through. Because as you said, maybe a lot of these young kids are there because it's a way to get fed. It's a way to learn, a way to move up in the world.
Yeah.
Even if it is such a big sacrifice.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, it's a real eye opener for me, and so and then so he was a monk for 2 years, right? And but he didn't uh, like that experience, or like that
Lifestyle.
lifestyle. I don't really know. I didn't want to go into detail. I mean, I was talking to 90-year-old man. I didn't want to get him too emotional. I know he's a very emotional guy. I mean, that's how we get the emotions.
Yeah.
Um, and so I wanted to keep it really, very open, like a very high level question, not into deep and understanding why he left the monastery. Um, maybe there's more to it. I don't really know, so I don't want to speculate anything either, right? So somehow he got uh, back to his village, and and he left that education as well. So he's actually, you know,
All over the
all
place.
over the place with his education, right?
And how far away is his village from Colombo? Is it like a long journey?
Those days, you're talking about 4 or 5 hours, going on a
right.
bus, or even more longer. Now it's different. Yeah, so probably half a day trip,
Yeah.
right? So then he came back to his village probably around 19. I mean, I try to work it out the ages.
Yeah.
Around 19 years old, and then he didn't know what to do because he was too old to go to even school, right? To his own school, and he should be in maybe year 7 or something now.
Later than that.
Yeah, but actually, yeah, because it's the monastery education system is different
Oh, right.
so they don't really recognize that
Yeah.
thing, right? Anyway, so and then his cousin from his mom's side, came to his dad's village that he was living in. He said, why don't you come and stay with me? I'll find a way for you to go to school. So then, I mean, I guess, this 19-year-old, no mom and dad, no guardian, is just making his own decisions, right? So he decided, okay, let's go. So he went to his cousin's, this is his first cousin, live in the other village, mom's side. And he went there. And somehow this guy was so pivotal in his whole life story. And he went to all these ministers, all the local MP, and all the contact, and somehow managed to got him to a school, um, local school, and somehow he managed to got into to do the year 10 exams,
Yeah.
year 10. So the principal said, well, I can't take this guy because he missed a lot of classes, grades. And somehow this guy, maybe with some political backing, whatever, I mean, got him to the class, gave him 3 months. So he actually missed the first few months as well. He started, this is a 19-year-old. He started in March. The classes is March. The year 10 exams, it's in December. So March, April, May, he need to prove that he's capable of sitting to the exam.
Yeah.
So somehow he stayed with his cousin. What he was saying, I mean, this cousin, he was talking about, actually, I actually met him many times. I know him. He was a poor, very poor farmer, right? And he also had number of kids in this house, but he wants to help my dad Nimal, right? And he was saying they didn't have any food. Most days they didn't have any food to eat or feed their kids. So what they done, they went, their backyard, they have jack trees. I don't know, you've seen jack trees, right?
Like jackfruit.
Jackfruit, right? So they boil the jackfruit and eat with chili for all 3 meals, right? So they didn't have any basic, rice or anything that they can get. So they were eating jackfruit for 3 meals. So that's how
Which is
they
like,
survive.
Basically, if you don't know what it is, it'd be like eating baby food.
Worse.
It's
probably worse. Yeah. So and during that times, and they didn't have electricity, power, so they were reading. Like my dad was studying in a lantern, carousel lantern, um, and he managed to convince the principal and sat on the exam, an year 10 exam, and then he passed the exam.
Where was he learning all this stuff? Was it from his cousin? Or was it just materials from class? Like, how did he catch up so many years? Do you know? Or?
Yeah, I don't really know. Like I think that he had that really keenness, right?
Yeah, the drive.
Enthusiasm. And he, every time that, I mean, because, you won't get access to books and stuff like very easily those days, right? And especially in country, even now, they struggle to get books. Um, so he must done unbelievable things to, like, I mean, every time they go to school, I mean, you don't even imagine, right? Like if you want to something that we take a picture now, right, with our mobile phone.
Yeah.
What are you talking those days, right? So they have to memorize. So he had I mean, enthusiasm, like it's a real passion for learning. I think helped him to somehow pass these exams, right? So anyway, so he managed to pass his exams. He was just so just turned 20. This is year 10, right? And then year 10, and then normally you have to only go to year 10. You don't, those schools pretty much finish in year 10. So if you want to go to do the year 12 exams, you have to go to different schools. But I mean, he's a poor guy. I mean, now he's got the year 10 certificate. He can get a job,
Yeah.
right? So that was his priority. So uh, at that time, there's another important guy that I actually missed in this discussion. So with this monk, when he came like to pick him up, also there was another cousin from Nimal's mom's side. So he was actually a herb, like a what do you call Asian doctor, right? So he had a dispensary or a clinic in Colombo as well. So he was very fond of my dad. He was actually helping him as well, uh, just like that the Buddhist monk. And so when he finished year 10, that cousin, that doctor cousin, he sent him like those days communication, everything by letters, right?
Yeah.
Send a letter saying, brother, if you're thinking of, if you're not thinking of further studying, why don't you come back to Colombo? Colombo and can stay with me. So he knew that there's more opportunities in Colombo. So he took that offer. So he went to Colombo and stay with his cousin, other cousin. And so he was running this. He was actually working in this clinic, and but he was kind of qualified Asian doctor, not like the Western
And when
doctor.
you say like Asian, like herbal medicine.
Herbal
kind of,
medicine, yeah. Which is very popular, especially those days, and even now, it's herbal medicine is quite popular in Sri Lanka. And so, at the same time, so he asked what Nimal wants to do, and then he said, "Well, I want to get a job." And he said, "Why don't you go to English school and learn English?" And he said, "Well, that's a whole new thing for me, and it will take some time. I want to find a quick way to get a job." So then what he's done, he went to this course, like a typist course. I don't know, you know what typist mean? Um, there was such a thing called typewriters those days. Have you ever seen a typewriter?
I think only at Sia's house, at
Yeah.
Nimal's house, I think I've seen a typewriter, and that's probably it.
Yeah. So the typewriter, pretty much, you type things onto a piece of paper. And at that time, no computers, of course. This is when Nima was 21 years old. And so that's 1956. So at that time, never heard anything about computer, not even thinking of those things. So he wants to go to this typist course. So it was a 6 months course. While he was doing that course, he had opportunity to go to a job interview. And then he went to this job interview and he came number one in that job interview to get that job. So it's a government job as a casual kind of work. And then when he was there, only a month, there was another job offer came from another government organization. It's a labor department in Sri Lanka. And again, he went to that. and he came number one in that thing. So so he got that job. It's more of a permanent casual role. And then after that, he did some exams in typing roles, and then he got kind of became a qualified government recognized
Yeah.
typist, and then they gave him a permanent job in the labor department. And
And do you know what that journey was like for him? Like, was that a huge deal? Because, you know, coming from nothing, was it enough for him to have a comfortable like life off
So-
that, or is it not that much of a wage?
yeah, I guess it's relative, everything, right?
Yeah,
Like, so
yeah,
for him, you know, he was just a single man. He didn't have any dependents, and I mean, he probably have his cousins that who helped him. So this is another thing that I want to mention. Good point that you're raising. You know, those his cousin that I told you that didn't have any food, but they
Yeah.
were feeding him, right? You know, these guys used to come to my place when I was a kid. Man, my dad went out of his way to take care of them. You know, even their kids, and giving his clothes, giving them money when they're going back. And I was thinking, these guys are using him, right? For me, like, it's like, man, why my dad is doing so much, right? I didn't realize.
Yeah, you don't understand the backstory.
Yeah.
And I mean, it clearly shows that, you know, they helped him in a time where he
Yeah.
was in need, and he probably knows that without them he wouldn't be in the position that he is today.
Yeah.
And, you know, he looks back on that, and he's indebted to them,
Absolutely.
and so he wants to do everything he can to give back.
I mean, one thing I realized, great thing about Nimal, he never forgot anything that everybody else done for him. That's such a amazing character.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's probably one of the key takeaways we'll have from today, right? You know, we've read it in books as well, you know, always when you get where you're going, don't forget to turn back around.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's even the same. I think there's another quote. It's like, you know, it takes an entire village to teach a child or to take care of a child. And it's the same thing on your way to a successful life. You know, there are so many people, even if it's someone just, you know, saying hi to you in the street, that might lift you up and help you to get through a tough day. And there's so many people that you have to appreciate once you make it. And I think that's a very powerful thing, to be humble enough to, when you are
Yep.
so-called successful, to be humble enough to
Remember.
not take it as, oh, I did all of this.
Yep.
But to, you know, share what you have with the people who have helped you along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that you're thinking that way, Dylan, because talking to Nimal, this is something that I realized, you know, I mean, this is the reason, when you look back, this is the reason there's so many people in our house, right? This is the reason that he's so hospitable, you know, to people, and he can see when someone's struggling that he need to help. You know, there's no choice. You know, he just give everything that he's got. He has, like, to these people, because he can relate that person to him. You know, that
he's
story.
been there. He's
Yeah.
been there. He's, you know, had the darkest days when, you know, there's not even food to eat. So
Yeah.
he knows that struggle.
Yeah. So to go back to your question that you're asking, was that enough for him to survive? Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot more what he achieved. I mean, this is the struggle, right? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Once he's got the job, one thing that he's done, just like his studies, that he had that passion to learn, and he continued that passion, like the learning thing, throughout his life, right? So, and he was, while he was like his only first job, he look at what are the trends, what's the next thing that he can do to go into the next step, right? Next level. So uh, there was a course called stenographer course, right? So that it's more like shorthand, taking notes, and then again typing involved. So that's a kind of a next level for him to go. So he done a course. He went to study in this course, and then that's when he met uh, you know his wife's sister. So that's my mom's
Yeah.
sister, which is Uncle Jack's mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they became good friends. And then it's a long story. I think we shouldn't go into full details. I mean, I will tell you a bit more detail offline. So then they became friends, and then because of that, my dad Nimal went to their place, Leela's place, and then that's when Nimal met Nyana, my mom. Uh, and so it's even funnier because before even asked Nyana out, he went and actually talked to my grandmother, Nyana's mom,
Asking what? Like
just to say,
asking.
well, I am interested in your daughter.
Right.
Yeah, is that okay if I start talking to her? And so my grandmother, um, she knew she can see a genuine young man, and she also knew my dad's cousin, that her doctor, because that was close to their home in Colombo. Because by the way, my mom's coming from Colombo, so she was pretty much born and raised in Colombo, which is the capital city. But again, they were very poor family. So my grandmother invited my dad one day when everyone went to school, like or doing their stuff, and had a good chat with my dad, with Nimal. So she said to him, "Well, you seems like a nice man. I know your cousin, very reputable, good people. Um, and we are a very poor family. We got, like, I mean, 10 kids in my mom's family, right? And only one person working. My grandmother didn't work, but she was a very good manager, like managing household stuff. So my grandfather pretty much worked and gave the money at the end of the month, and pretty much my grandmother managed the
Manage the
whole for
rest. Yeah.
feeding 10 kids. It's like, so
It's a little restaurant.
yeah. And pretty much was telling him, well, as long as you're serious, as long as you're taking care of my daughter, uh, don't expect anything apart from, us. Like, I don't have anything to give it to you. But if you're really like her, let's think. I mean, in a way, he didn't say, hey, go and marry her. Just in a way, she kind of let him loose, kind of have that relationship open up. Um, yeah, so that's how they met. But the funny story, again, to answer your question, so whatever the income that he got, was it sufficient for him that time? And this young Nimal, he was only probably about 28 years old. Now he's pretty much making a big reputation. He's actually, there's a big story. So one of the things that I asked when we had this discussion, Nimal said, one thing he's done very well for his success, he was very loyal to his bosses. This is something that he told me as well when I leave Sri Lanka, coming to Australia. Always, listen to your boss. Be loyal to them. Climb the ladder, which I didn't believe all that, but he was very loyal to his bosses, and then he's a talented young man as well. He always exceed their expectations, right? So he went out of his way to do stuff for these people, and because of that, he had a very good reputation. And so I mean, young kid, orphan, around 28. He had enough money to buy a house, buy a land.
Wow.
He actually he didn't have enough money, but he had that. He wants to buy a property, so that's when he came to Maharagama. That's where his house is now, and he gave a deposit to this land. And at that time, he didn't have enough money, but then somehow he managed to get that through. It's a funny enough. This is another funny story. Um, he actually, when he got this um, property, because he was a government worker, he has to declare his all uh, uh, documents and stuff like that. It was a bit complex. And my dad wasn't even married that time. He decided to write the deed to his girlfriend. I don't know if that's a good call or not.
No.
But at that time, he asked his cousin, "Should I do that?" And he said, "It's your call." I mean, it's trust. Those days is totally different, I believe. And again, he had to borrow money, and people gave money, and he returned those money to buy this land. And I mean, even today, that they're living in that house.
Oh, it's the same one.
Yeah, same one. This is
Wow.
like when he was not even married, they bought this house, right? And so that time, my mom, Nyana, she was studying she was studying training school for become a teacher. And so they had a distance relationship for about 5 years because he was working in the North Sri Lanka. There's a long story about his activities there. And some of the great achievements that Nimal achieved over the years. So he was he was one of the founding member of the cultural ministry in Sri Lanka. So there wasn't a cultural ministry at that time in Sri Lanka. So with his bosses, and he was founding committee of that cultural ministry. And then again, at that time, this is 1970, I believe. They because we were still a part of the like a colony. We were independent, but it's not fully independent. We got that in 1972. They at that time, they there's no main religion in Sri Lanka. So for Buddhism to be the main religion, there was a committee, and he was one of the secretaries in that committee. So that's something that he in his own achievements. When I asked him what are the key achievements that he's achieved in his life, this is something that he thought one of the greatest things that he achieved. And then the Sri Lankan album,
Emblem.
Emblem. Yeah, sorry, Emblem. So he was the secretary for the committee of creating that emblem. So that's something that he proud of in terms of achieving.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because we still have a lot of documentation in our house. Should be actually in a museum. Still, we have some documents. It's actually original documents. So he went on and done so many things, and he was actually very close a working relationship, had two prime ministers. One is very first female prime minister ever in the world, Mrs. Bandaranaike. So he was working with her and a personal level, so that's something that he really admire doing, because he was saying, compared to the current politicians, these people were like goats, like they never had any intention to do any corruptions, etc. They always wanted to do stuff for the people. So he's achieved amazing things. So so I asked my dad Nimal, what are the I mean, I asked him, do you see your life is very successful, right? Because that's what this whole discussion is all
Yeah.
about, right? And so he was very happy, and he I mean, I can see, I see him as a successful person, um, and things that he achieve as a professional wise, and also as a personal wise. I mean, 90-year-old got so many friends. I mean, I think I have friends, but if you know him, he got so many friends everywhere that he goes. He got friends and people that really he support and he know. So
But just on that, I want to make a point because I think it's like something that I've heard throughout this conversation. I think probably one of the big reasons why he has so many people that, respect him is his authenticity.
absolutely,
Because, you talked about it when he met Archie, your mum's mother, you know, he seemed like a genuine guy.
Yep.
He is,
yep,
he shows off what he actually is. And then, maybe in those early interviews, as you said,
Yep.
he always ranked number one.
Yeah.
It's probably because everyone else is kind of fighting for, to be the most bureaucratic. Whereas this guy from just a small village is just trying to be himself.
Yeah.
And just that kind of authenticity, it shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
and-
So absolutely. So I asked him what are the success factors, ingredient, So what he said, always do stuff honest. Like honesty is number one ingredient, right? So what he said, you be honest to yourself first before honest to anybody else, right? If you feel like you're doing something honestly to you, then that creates, everything that you do is successful. Be always honest. And then, I mean, second thing I already mentioned, never forget the past, like, who helped you, and always contribute. You always give back to those people, right? And so, and then the third thing that he hasn't mentioned, but what I see, that he had this, when he talked about his professional career, he had this flexibility, right? He's had this eager to maybe part of to helping others as well, always to do more than what others expect him to do, right? I mean, this is why he became, like, I mean, he continued to improve himself, without even any guidance from anybody. And then also he continued to win everyone's hearts, right? So I take away from that discussion those three things, as the success ingredients for him. And I mean, me well, some of the trait I got him from as well, like, I always tell you as well, always be honest. Honesty is an amazing thing, that, the trust doesn't matter whether you're doing business or doing anything else, that the trust is the most important thing for any relationship, right?
Yeah.
You can only get that trust being honest, right? So I can see that from my dad Nimal, and really looking at his story. So it's a really eye opener. And by the way, when my dad and mom got married, they moved to this his land, and then he built a what do you call, a mud and timber house, right? Um, you glad to know I was actually born in there. So I was actually proud to say, I was born in a mud hut.
That your dad built.
My
as
dad
well.
built, right? I mean, my dad built mean he probably got someone
right,
else
yeah,
to help building. And then they built the house that we are living in. And my sister Patmika actually came to that house. So my longest memory, my probably longest memory, actually the day that they bringing her into our house. At that time, we had both houses. It was that mud hut as well as the brick house that we see and Archie, my mom and dad currently live in now. Um, and and I remember, they were bringing Nandi. That was my probably the oldest memory that I have. Um, and yeah, so I can say proudly I came from a mud hut, but I can't say all the hardship that my dad had, Nimal had, I had. But saying that when I was in 1992, that time during that time, many weekends, right? I have to leave Newcastle, come on Friday, and then go back on Sunday. During that time, I was doing part-time work in Sydney. I didn't have a place to go. I was pretty much sleeping on the street or just walking around the street. And I was crying sometimes because it was cold. And I was always remember my dad, because I was thinking, well, he had no one. Actually, at least I have someone. Even I mean, those days, very rarely that we get to talk to. I'm talking about 1990 when I was in Australia, because we didn't have telephones. Like, we had telephones, but it was so expensive to call Sri Lanka. So, but I had my cousins living in Sydney, but I didn't have time to go to their houses and stay because I had shift between. Um, but those struggle, while I was having those struggles, I always going back to my dad's story that I knew at that time, thinking, well, my dad done it, so it's my turn. I can do it. I will overcome these challenges, and that motivates me. So if I have success, I would thanks to my dad
Yeah.
for giving me that positivity, giving me that story, something that I could hold on to. You know what I mean?
In tough times. And,
Yeah,
it's the old saying, tough times create strong men. Strong men
absolutely.
create easy times. And I think hardship is a very powerful thing, although, it's intense suffering in the moment.
Yep.
It's something that you talk to anyone who's been through hardship and they look back on it as a very powerful and pivotal moment in their story.
Yeah.
But I've written down a few things
Yep.
that I think are kind of key takeaways, at least for me. And the first one I want to elaborate on a bit, the mud hut, which you grew up in, that turned into a little schoolhouse, which
It's not exactly that schoolhouse. It's actually in the between.
oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a schoolhouse on your
Yeah, because that
parents'.
was my mom's classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's a little schoolhouse there, which your mum would teach in, and I think it's like, both of your parents are very dedicated to service.
absolutely.
Your mum always teaching.
Yeah, even now, 86-year-old still doing teaching.
Yeah, going to Sunday school and teaching, and your dad also, as you said, always wants to give back, wants to have people in the house, wants to do as
Absolutely.
much as possible. So I think that service is a really strong one. You touched on, exceeding expectations and going above and beyond. I think that's important. And this kind of desire for learning, always wanting to learn,
Yeah.
and constantly growing, never just sitting still and being happy in
Yep.
sitting still, really, and just always wanting to progress. I think that's
Yeah,
important.
1% growth every day.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
And I think kind of related to what you said is having that grit, and when tough times arise, just getting through it and knowing that there's greener pastures on the other side. And another one which I think is really important is like community, and that's kind of related to giving back. But I think at least now, like when you were talking, I kind of almost thought maybe, you know, them hanging around with all of these people, always having people in their house, is actually also a secret to their longevity as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because there's countless studies that show that when us as humans, we are, communal creatures. We want to be around other people, and so maybe constantly filling their house with people and giving back to them is also a source of life for them as well.
I totally agree. I mean, again, I asked my dad for his 90th birthday what he wants to do. So what he wants to do, he wants to uh, give because a lot of people in Sri Lanka, especially in country, struggling at the moment with living costs is so high. So he wants to get a dry good pack, and with some money. He wants to give for his 90th birthday 90 packs and distribute to where we are right now in Maharagama, as well as his country, his village. So what I told him, let's not limit that to 90. If we can do more, it's not about the number. Just find out how many people they need those packs. So when we go in November, what I wanted to do, just spend some time with them, like us and my mom and dad, going into all these villages and distribute those packs. And then there's other things that he wants to do, but this is probably one thing that I wanted to be part of initially. And there's other religious activities and birthday party that we are planning to organize. It's such an achievement, living for 90 years, very healthy life.
Yeah, and it shows, what's the one thing he wants to do? He wants to give back. And, I personally think the best wisdom comes from the oldest people because, it's experience at the end of the day. And, just the fact that that's what he wants to do, maybe that is one of the secrets.
Yeah.
To genuine happiness.
Yeah. Giving back, nothing like giving back. I mean, again, we believe what we are doing here is also giving back. We could keep these stories to us and not sharing it. I think people see that as a giving back, and because it opens up discussions and people can listen to other people's stories and stories that inspired us. And then if you can learn from these stories, I think that's kind of giving back. Talking about giving back, Dylan, also wrapping this up. I think we've gone, I don't know how long. Again, these are unplanned, unscheduled discussions, unscripted, which is the best, right? And giving back. So 20th of June, I am doing the CEO Sleep Out to give back to Winnie's appeal. And so anyone willing to contribute to that cause, it will be amazing.
And it's not just financial either. If you can share this around to people in your network, the more people that can see this cause and give back, that's also helpful.
Yeah. I have a small target to achieve, but I'm nowhere even achieving that small target yet. So I need to start doing a bit more marketing, and I will get there. But yeah, any contribution would be much, much appreciated and means a lot to me as well.
Well, I think, we've gone for pretty long. Let's wrap it up there. I just want to say, thank you, Tathia. It's very difficult to, be very open and vulnerable and, talk about a story which is, clearly very important to you. But it's a very insightful story. And I think it shows, you can start anywhere and get to wherever you want as long as you have that goal and that drive. And,
totally.
So I'm very grateful for you sharing that story. And we'll wrap up there. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. And if you could give us a follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, and check us out on Instagram as well at the Quest for Success Pod, and you'll see all our updates there. Thank you guys.
Thank you. See you next time.